Today's guest is Greg Denning, a father of 7, mentor to dads around the world, and founder of Family Man Tribe. Greg is passionate about helping families lead with more presence, intention, and heart. In this conversation, we dive into real work of fatherhood, not just what it's like, but how it feels. Excellent. So thank you for joining me on this podcast today, Greg.
I'm so excited to be here. This is the most important work there is.
So tell me about the Family Man Tribe.
So yeah, I'll back up with my story. I grew up in a broken home, and my parents divorced when I was really young, and then stepdads came and went, several of them, and I ended up just leaving home at 16. I'm like, man, I'm out of here. I'm going to try to figure out life on my own, and it was so hard. It was brutal, and I was totally alone. Like I didn't have any really good male role models. Nobody around to show me what it meant to be a man. And honestly, I was so shy and so timid. I didn't have any friends either. And so I started diving into that and the desperation, the loneliness, the pain, I voraciously wanted to find the secrets to happiness and success. And I wanted a family. I wanted a family because the loneliness was the worst part. So as I started studying that was, 30 years ago, I just have been reading, I average a book a week. I've been just devouring everything I can get my hands on, interviewing people, traveling all over the world. I'm like, I've got to share this and build a tribe of family men. And so I call it the Formidable Family Man Tribe. And it's this community, this brotherhood of men that we just help each other. It's tools, strategies, coaching, support. And we cheer each other on and support each other through the triumphs and the trials, and be there for each other, because men need men. Men absolutely need men to call them out and help them up and cheer them on and give them the tools and strategies to be their best self. So they can, my whole, my mission is my family. And then my second mission is helping men be the best husbands and fathers they can be.
I love that. And you're so right. There's so much more support really for the mothers, us women. We kind of come together in these communities to support each other in the journey of mothers and matrescence. But there's not really a lot out there for fathers, is there? And we kind of don't really acknowledge their journey and the change that you go through. So what does fatherhood mean to you beyond the role of the roles and responsibility? Like, how would you describe fatherhood?
Yeah. To me, it's, so my relationship with my wife is the most important thing in the world. I cherish that so much. It is unreal. Just so special, so awesome. And then the two of us together, we now get to raise human beings. Like, think about that. I don't think we stop and think about that enough. Like,
so true.
You get this baby, this miracle of life. And you're like, I get to shape and guide and mentor and coach this child to become a part of this global community, like to raise this person, this human being, to be a superb adult that's going to offer something valuable to the world. What a privilege and a responsibility to coach and mentor and guide and build that relationship. And if we do it really well, then our kids actually become our best friends. And if we raise them well and we have a fantastic relationship, now they're my best adventure buddies. We do the coolest things all over the planet together. And I can't think of anyone else I'd rather go with than my own kids.
I love that. Just tell us, for the listeners, how old your kids are, because you were just telling me before we started.
Yeah. So 7 children. Our oldest is 22 and she's recently married. And then down from there, down to 8 is our youngest.
Wow. And they've become friends of yours with all the work that you put into your fatherhood journey. I love that. And you're so right. I think we don't stop to acknowledge the magnitude of the task of raising children, do we? And how we are responsible for the blueprint in them from those early years to the people they become for the rest of their life. And the responsibility that sits with us for that is insane. And we're almost just expected to know how to do it, which is kind of bizarre, because how? Do you know what I mean? There's so much that goes into that child, understanding, self-esteem, their mindset. It's overwhelming if you stop and think about it too hard, but to put the time and effort into learning more about it and giving it your absolutely best shot, I think, gosh, that's absolutely my commitment to my kids too. So I am with you on that.
Yeah. No, you nailed it. Like we literally are the model and the blueprint for our kids, because children, they watch and observe and absorb, and then they mimic, right? So
Hmm.
it's called imitation without regulation, right? So they're just watching, observing, even from like the time they're born, or even in the womb in some cases. They're just observing everything, how we do it, and then they just grow up doing it, their own little variation interpretation. So we literally are that blueprint. You're spot
Yeah.
on with that, and it's so important. And it's a huge load. It is
Yeah.
a massive burden that requires us to really grow and improve and take on massive amounts of responsibility, but the reward is infinitely more valuable.
So true. So true. So when did you realize the kind of father then that you wanted to become, and how exactly have you gone about shaping that? I know you said you've obviously read rather a lot and you've built the tribe with other fathers. So just tell us a bit more about that journey.
Yeah, well, it really hit home for me, like I was saying, when my parents divorced, and my dad only came around like once a year, and
Gosh.
and so I felt that void.
Mm,
Like, well, I'm not going to do that. And then stepdads came and went, and they just, I'm grateful for the efforts they put in, because it must have been so hard. I can't imagine being a stepdad, and there was, they just didn't give me any example,
hmm.
and it was just this void. Like, where are these great family men?
Hmm.
And they're rare, and so that drove me. And I remember sitting down at 16 years old with a piece of paper and started writing out, like, this is what I'm going to be, this is what I'm not going to be, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm not going to do. Now, I
Hmm.
didn't have the answers. I didn't know. I was like, if it's possible, I'm going to figure it out. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I started reading voraciously, seminars, webinars, interviewing people, observing people. I just was going to find out if it's possible. I was going to make it happen. I was going to become the kind of man that my kids could count on, that I
Hmm.
could really
Give us some
truly.
examples. I'd love to know what exactly you wrote down. What was it that you knew that you wanted to be and how you wanted to show up for your kids?
Yeah, the first things, because of where I was and the way I grew up, in the in poverty and in rough neighborhoods. And yeah, it was, there wasn't a lot of like, this is what I want. It was, at the
Hmm.
first, I didn't know what I wanted, and so I started with what I didn't want, because there
Right.
was a lot of that, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, okay, I'm not going to let addiction wreck my life, because I saw tons of that. I'm
Hmm.
not going to let anger and tempers destroy relationships. And I had a crazy temper. Like, it was
Hmm.
bad. And so I
Right.
knew I had to get rid of that before I got into a relationship with my wife. And luckily I did, because it's just a wrecking ball. Anger is
How?
just an
I'd
absolute
love to hear
wrecking
your
ball.
story. How did you manage to control that?
So
Because I know in motherhood, a lot of women talk about how one of the hardest challenges is regulating ourselves. So give us an insight as to how you did
it
that.
is. And parenting, right? And kids, like, they don't mean it, but they're like
Mhm.
pushing all your buttons. That's
Yeah.
it's
You'd
the
never
most
realize
amazing
how
thing. Like,
angry and frustrated and
right.
pushed you could be until you have kids, right?
Exactly. Which, okay, let's be honest, like, that's the best way to refine yourself. If you
Yeah.
take the opportunity, the privilege, like, having a child is the best way to grow, because infants and toddlers could care less about your plans and your agenda and all the stuff you have going on, and this, that, what the neighbors think, and, oh, I got to do this, and they don't care. They could care
Yeah.
less. They're going to do what they want to do, which is play and eat and sleep and make messes. And so it is we who have to be the adults in the family,
Hmm.
and we have to grow, and we have to overcome our own issues.
Hmm.
So for my journey, I really made the commitment. Somehow it clicked for me. I'm like, I can't do this. I can't be angry. I can't
Hmm.
have a temper. Like, that will just destroy, because I saw it and I felt it myself. It destroys families, marriages, relationship with kids. So I'm like, I'm done. So I started paying attention. I'm like, what is it I get upset about? That was the first step, just awareness.
Hmm.
Like, what am I
Yeah.
getting upset about? And then I would just kind of say it out loud or write it down, and just, it's the most powerful thing. It's so simple. It's so elementary, but it is transformative. You take
Yeah.
what you're upset about and you just set it on the table, so to speak.
Hmm. Get that
And you,
distance between you and the
yeah.
problem.
And then
Yeah.
you look at it and you're like, that's so stupid. Like, I got so angry over that thing. And for me, you can do whatever. It's like, oh, the kid broke the thing. And you're like, okay, well, how much does it cost? You're like, yeah, I paid $20 for that, or, 20 pounds, whatever. And you're like, wait a minute. Did I seriously just scream at my kid over $20?
Yeah.
That's never worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started going through that and I started noticing the vast majority of things that we get upset about are small things.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day I just realized, I'm like, wait a minute, only small people get bothered by small things.
Love that.
And I'm not doing that anymore, because if we allow ourselves to get bothered by small things, we are going to spend our entire lives upset,
Mm-hmm.
which is what I was doing, right? When
Mm-hmm.
when I had all my anger management issues, I was mad all the time. The guy cut me off, and this happened, and that happened. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
the government and taxes and the employer, blah, blah, the economy. You can be upset about everything, but then you're upset all the time. And so finally, I'm like, I'm done. I am done getting upset over small things, because I get to choose.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and
And it
this is
all
the cool
started
thing.
then with that awareness of
Yes.
what you were doing.
Yep.
I love
Absolutely.
that. It's so often, I think that's one of the problems, isn't it? Is we don't have that self-awareness, and what we're actually doing is just living out the way we were brought up.
Exactly. And so all of our own little stuff is just coming out unconsciously or
Yeah,
subconsciously. Yeah.
so true. So did you have one thing then in specifically that you would model for your children daily?
If I have lots of things, I have a
Hmm.
list that
Give
I
us a
work.
couple of examples of things that you think are really key that you would love for people listening to this to take away with to put
Yeah.
into their parenting.
So maybe two things that come up often when we're coaching families or couples or
Hmm.
individuals is, number one, I want my kids to see me pushing my own limits, to constantly seeking to improve myself, to refine myself, always learning, right?
Hmm.
I want them to just grow up thinking, well, this is how we do life. We're
Yeah.
just always striving to get better. Never, I tell people, like, you can either level up or level off. I
Hmm.
never want to have my kids see me leveling off. I want them
Yeah.
to see me growing and chasing and pursuing and always striving to be better. So that's number one. It's like model for them how to learn and grow endlessly for the rest of your life, because there's never a graduation from education.
Hmm.
Number two is, kids need to see their parents chasing big dreams. Parents
Right.
need to have goals and dreams
Hmm.
and be pursuing them. Never, not at the sacrifice of the family, but having a family and pursuing dreams, so that kids grow up and think, hey, we can do this.
Hmm.
It's possible to do awesome things, great things, and still have a loving, close family. And that family life and big dreams and goals aren't always going against each other.
Hmm. And
They're not
sometimes
always
I think
opposed.
people can think that actually, can't they? You can't have them together, and that's not actually really the case, is it? It's about cultivating a growth mindset. So they
Yep,
put the effort really onto the progress and the effort, and that's how they're going to get the rewards.
exactly.
Love that. Okay, and you said before then that yelling is a symptom, not a solution. So how do you build connection with your children, especially in those high stress moments? Obviously, you
Yeah.
spoke about how you've learned through self-awareness to let the small stuff go. But yeah, how do you keep the connection when you're feeling stressed about the moment?
So the key is, if we could see our relationship with our kids kind of like a relationship bank account, so to speak.
Hmm.
And if we make deposits in it, then there's capital, so to speak. There's relationship capital in there, in the times we have to maybe make a withdrawal.
Hmm.
But if we're making very few deposits and lots of withdrawals, so we're getting angry, we're getting upset, we're asking them to do things, we're getting after them all the time. If we get in this mode of just everything a child does, no, 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 stop, stop, stop. Why do you do this? Why don't we blah, blah? It's just withdraw, withdraw, withdraw. And so those relationship counts get so overdrawn and they're empty, and the kids feel it and the parents feel it. It's so sad, and it just doesn't work. So the key is to make deposits all the time. Just
Hmm.
constantly be making as many deposits as possible. And I've set up my entire life to work under micro and macro, right? So I make micro deposits as little daily things, hugs, compliments, paying attention when they come to show me something really cool. I stop, I get down to their level. And my daughter this morning, she loves making those little paper claws. She loves it. And she's always making different things. Never, ever, ever, people, never underestimate how much your kids want to make you proud. how
Hmm.
much they want to please you. And so they're constantly wanting to show you something because they want your praise. They're just
Yeah.
born wanting you to be proud of them. And
Hmm.
so we make micro deposits when we stop, when we pay attention, we set down our phones, we get off the stupid TV and be engaged and be present. That's amazing. And then we can do macro deposits like I'll take one child and go do something absolutely extraordinary somewhere in the world. Go
Hmm.
circle Iceland or go hike up to the base camp of Mount Everest or go running on the Great Wall of China or ride ponies across Mongolia. Unforgettable,
Yeah.
absolutely unforgettable. You have that memory with that child for the rest of your lives. And those are big, macro deposits. And so the
Yeah.
more we make deposits, the more we can keep that relationship whole. And then when the stressful moments come, let's say they do something, you keep perspective. So let me, can I tell two quick stories?
Go
Um,
for it. I would love that.
one day I was walking out of my office and I had this beautiful home office, and then you walk out and we had this gorgeous music room library, the grand piano and the bookshelves and these beautiful couches. And I walk out and my daughter was 5 and she had a huge kitchen knife and she was just poking holes in our leather couch. Right. And I was like, like what? What are you doing? And she's like, oh, hi, Daddy. I'm playing a game.
Right.
And so it was so innocent.
Yeah.
And I could have yelled and screamed and got, lost. I could have hurt the relationship. I could have done, but
Hmm.
it wouldn't have patched all the holes in the leather couch.
Hmm.
And it wasn't malice. She just didn't know. In her little 5-year-old brain, she was playing a cute game. And so I didn't even get upset. I went over and said, oh, we don't play games with knives in the
Hmm.
couch. And look at the holes. And I taught her and went back in. And she was like, oh, okay. Right. And I maintained perspective. It's just a couch.
Yeah.
And then a second time we were actually in Mongolia, and my son, he's just he's this tough kid, and he was skipping rocks, and he wasn't thinking. He was 14 at the time, and he just turned around, he skipped a rock as hard as he could, but it was towards all the vans and the people, and this rock skipped right across the river, went up and shattered the windshield of the van, right?
Yeah.
And I just looked over, and I looked at him, and he knew immediately. I literally
Hmm.
did not have to say a single thing. He knew.
Hmm.
So I didn't have to reprove him. I didn't have to correct him. I didn't have to say anything. I just waded across the river, pulled out some money, and paid the guy for a new windshield, and that was that. And my son
Yeah.
came over and he's like, I'm really sorry. I'm like, I know you are. And I'm good.
Hmm.
I don't have to get after you. I don't have to punish you. Like the lesson was
Hmm.
learned. And so
Yeah.
if we'll keep perspective and realize, no, the relationship is far more important. And the lessons are actually better learned with natural consequences and love instead of thinking that some dad lecture or some punishment is actually going to make that big of a difference. It doesn't. It just hurts the relationship.
You're so right. And I absolutely love that about protecting the relationship, because children do often know when they've done wrong, don't
Yeah.
they? And
Oh, absolutely.
actually, that parent lecture doesn't really gain you anything other than strain the relationship.
Exactly.
And you put them into a reactive state where they then instantly become defensive or aggressive, again, further damaging the relationship. Whereas if you can stay calm and they're more receptive, just like with your son there, you can actually have a conversation and acknowledge that they already recognized that they did
Mhm.
wrong and you've maintained the relationship. But I
Exactly.
take my hat off to you, because I think the biggest challenge in that is managing our own
Mhm.
response, isn't it?
It is.
So
Absolutely.
you clearly have put the work in there.
Yeah. And I did, because from my raging, crazy temper to that
Hmm.
moment, it was the work that was worth it. But you articulated it perfectly. Getting upset in that moment doesn't help the lesson. It just hurts the
Hmm.
relationship.
I love that. Thank you for sharing those stories. So, what do you think sons learn from their fathers then? What that they can't learn from anyone else? What makes it so important, that father-son relationship?
Woo. Well, and daughters too. Like
Yeah.
we have a major crisis in our society right now because dads are absent.
Hmm.
There's at least 40% of homes are single parent homes, and it's usually
Wow.
moms. So dads
Hmm.
aren't there, and then even many of the dads who are technically still married are absent mentally or emotionally or spiritually or whatever. They're watching TV, they're staring at their phone, they're addicted to something. I mean, they were absent. And there are critical lessons that our children can only learn from dads. Now,
Mm-hmm.
moms are amazing. Moms are absolutely incredible, and they do
Yeah.
so much. And there's only things that children can learn from their moms.
Mm-hmm.
But dads play a critical role.
I agree with that.
And we
Yeah.
need to be roughhousing with them. There's actually
Mm-hmm.
tons of research behind that. We need to be roughhousing with them. We need to play with them. We need to help them take risks.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to lead them, you know, gently cultivate toughness and
Mm-hmm.
grit and resilience and facing fears and learning about proper balances and learning to defend and protect ourselves and learning to go out, and for sons especially, to be warriors, to be
Mm-hmm.
defenders, to go out and make a difference and chase things down and hunt, so to speak, for the family. And, you know, to be the warrior and the king and the leader, like that's learned from dad. But if
Mm-hmm.
dad's weak or absent or clueless, they don't get those things. And so they become soft and confused and overprotected, because mom's role is to protect and
Yeah.
cuddle and comfort and help them that. But so without that beautiful balance, we get a whole generation of people who are weak and afraid and aren't pursuing anything and lack
Mm-hmm.
self-confidence and self-esteem.
And we are seeing a lot of that, aren't we? That children are lacking resilience, and we're having a lot of mental health problems.
Yep.
Can you give any kind of tips on how you would go about building more resilience and grit? I love that you said that in our children.
Yeah. So the key is, again, you're always modeling it, right? So from
Mm-hmm.
the very get-go, my kids are watching me do hard things.
Mm-hmm.
And we got that. I'm literally from the very get-go, because I was carrying them. We had a front pouch because we had so many kids and so many close together. We adopted our first and then had 3 kids back to back to back, right?
Well.
And so I was carrying a kid on a front pouch and a kid on a back pouch and sometimes a kid in my arms. And we were out hiking. We were out having adventures. We put them in a bike trailer, right? I had a running stroller. So literally from the time, like before they were even conscious or could even talk, they're watching me push hard and grind.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm carrying them in tough places. They're watching me sweat and smile and like, this is the best. Isn't this awesome? And they're watching me set the example of resilience and grit. They're watching me
Mm-hmm.
do triathlons. When they were all little, I was doing triathlons, and they watched me do humanitarian work in austere environments. We go into crazy places and do insanely hard things,
Mm-hmm.
suffer for the good of other people. And your kids are watching, and they watch me work out every single day. Well, not every single day, every single week. I work out 5 days a
Yeah.
week, hard, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so when they're little, they try to do little push-ups and little sit-ups, and they climb on my back while I'm doing push-ups, and they participate. But now my teenagers, they hit it hard. We go in our
Yeah.
gym together, and they go. And when we go climb, we just summited Mount Kilimanjaro last year. My
Incredible.
teenagers
Mm-hmm.
summited Mount Kilimanjaro. They love that crap.
Yeah.
They love the push and the grind because we modeled the way. And then as they were ready, I never pushed them to do it. I always invited them,
Mm-hmm.
and I made it fun. I made it attractive. And so they learned to do hard things with a smile on their faces and actually lean into the fun of pushing their own limits. And so it's done again, micro, macro, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
might go climb a huge mountain, but then you do the workouts each day.
Okay, that's incredible advice there, actually. That's really incredible advice. But look, the majority of the work comes through modeling the behavior.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I
And
love
making
that.
it attractive. If I'm sitting there with a sad face, like, oh, this is terrible. Oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
It's horrible. They're going to look at me and be like, I don't want any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no way. But if I'm modeling doing hard things with a great attitude and
Mm-hmm.
how literally it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's important, they want in.
That's the key, isn't it? Just there, the respect. Yeah. So do you think a father's presence has an effect on a daughter's self-esteem and sense of worth?
100%. Everything. Wow. Man. Yes. More than anything. More
Yeah.
than anything. So I have 4 daughters.
Mm-hmm.
And so girls are just little women. And women uh, want, desire, need to have a good man in their lives. And so
Mm-hmm.
daughters have that. And so it's daddy until they find their own spouse or partner.
Yeah.
And so they want his attention and they want his praise. They want his presence. They
Yeah.
want to be, in this beautiful way, they want to be everything to him.
Mm-hmm.
Like my wife wants my attention, needs my attention, wants my praise. I need to listen to her, right? And to be a safe place for her, provide that safety and protection. Same with our daughters. And so if
Mm-hmm.
I'm there and she feels safe mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially, if I provide that safety and I'm acknowledging her and giving her attention, I'm listening to, as she can just, my 8-year-old right now can talk and 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 talk. And I just listen. Oh, she just tells me on and on. She'll walk with me around the yard as we're doing chores and she just talks and talks. I mean, doesn't come up for air, just keeps on. And I'm listening, I'm paying attention, I'm engaging in the conversation. She feels heard, seen,
Mm-hmm.
validated. She feels important. She was just barely in here sitting on my lap before we started, right? She
Mm-hmm.
comes in and cuddles and hugs and loves and constantly expressing love and constantly showing affection and touch, holding hands and cuddling and hugs. And if we're doing that, yeah, it builds up our daughters so they're so confident and so strong.
Mm-hmm.
My 18-year-old daughter is unstoppable.
That's
Just
incredible.
unstoppable. She's all my daughters are amazing, but
Yeah.
she's just this rock
I
because
particularly like what you said there about the heard, seen, and validated. And
Mhm.
they're the things we want to carry forwards into our adult relationships, aren't they? As a female, the things you want to feel in your marriage. So you're
Exactly,
laying that example out, aren't you, as the father listening? And that's exactly what your daughters are going to want and seek in their future husbands.
exactly. Especially the way I treat their mother, right?
Hmm.
So they're watching our marriage, and now my daughters and my sons know what a phenomenal marriage looks like.
Hmm. Again, modeling the behavior.
Yep.
So how do you want your children to remember you?
Whew.
Big question.
Yeah. There's a lot there because I've been, obviously thinking about it since I was 16.
Hmm.
But I want them to see and know. Well, I want them to see me as I am.
Hmm.
No facades, no masks. I want them to see the real me. And in that, I'm striving to be my very best self. I'm constantly improving and growing and truly living.
Hmm.
I want them to say, man, my dad loved life. He really lived. And he lived by his priorities, which are, of course, my wife and then my children, right? I want them to know, and they do, and I want them to remember, like, I put family first, that
Hmm.
I was genuinely and truly a formidable family man.
God, I mean, that is quite an example you're setting there for your kids, modeling that level of behavior, that resilience, that grit, putting your family first, being that example for your sons and for your daughters. I take my hat off to you in a lot of respect. Just hearing your story, that is absolutely incredible. And I think there's certainly a lot we can take from all of that. I've just got one final question for you, for any dads listening that feel like they've messed up, they've maybe not been as present as they could have been, or felt quite overwhelmed and not known how to step up to the role of father. Do you have any advice on how it's not too late, how they could step in now and what they could do moving forwards?
Absolutely. It's never, ever, ever too late. It's never too late. The best thing we can do is start today.
Hmm.
Just think, even if we've made mistakes, even if we've, fallen off the track or felt trapped or, failed, we can literally start today and say, okay, what kind of man do I want to be today? What kind of husband and father do I want to be today? And you just do that.
Hmm.
And you're like, well, I've always been angry and I shouted and now the kids are afraid of me. Okay. Start today by not getting angry, by
Hmm.
going in and apologizing. So I can say, hey, I'm sorry. I'm genuinely sorry for being absent or being negligent or not paying attention or exploding. I'm so sorry. I'm going to be better, and mean it and do it. And
Hmm.
if we change, then everything changes, right? If nothing changes, then nothing changes. But if we change, everything changes. That was one of the things I learned early on. It's like, for anything to get better in my life, I have to get better.
Yeah.
Like nothing will get better in my life until I get better. But
Yeah,
as
I
I
learned
get
that early
better,
on in parenthood too, to be fair.
yeah,
You realize that the
yeah,
work does start with you.
yes,
Anything you want for your children, you need to look in the mirror, and that's where the change needs to take place, not with them.
exactly. And so any father who wants, has messed up in the past, like, okay, well, I'm drawing a line in the sand, I'm stepping across, and starting today, I'm going to be a better man. And it will bring results. It can't not.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. Well, lovely. Look, thank you so much for your time today and everything that we've discussed. That's brilliant. And I really feel you're going to help a lot of fathers out there. And even from a mother's aspect, hearing you speak like that about, as I say, the resilience, grit, and just the example you were setting for your children is truly remarkable. So thank you.
Thank you.